Welcome to the K.A.M.A podcast. Come
Hey, welcome back to another episode of K.A.M.A podcast. Today, well, as you guys remember from our first episode, we talked about what is dengue. And, well, Rabbit, want to summarize for us again what dengue is?
Well, unlike the Vietnamese name of dengue, which actually literally means bleeding fever, dengue in English is not such clear by its name. So it's an infection that you can get with the vector mosquito, and very painful. So very painful.
Keep going.
Yeah, so according to CDC, about 400 million people gets infected per year, 100 million get sick, and 40,000 die. And note for this disease has been here for more than 100 years, at least, not hundreds of years. And still, 40,000 people die every year. Personally, I don't want to get this thing.
That's a lot of numbers.
Exactly. And you guys might be wondering, who's this mysterious person on our screen right now? And well, let us introduce you, Miss Deborah Lucille Radel, or better known as the elusive Miss Deb. Introduce yourself, Miss Deb.
I'm here at school in my classroom in the echoey, empty of students school. But we're here on a Friday afternoon to talk about dengue.
Exactly.
Great time.
And we know that you're already an expert you're a teacher of, AP biology for multiple years now. Can you tell us a bit about your experience?
Well, yeah, I'm a science teacher. I have a master's degree in teaching science from Utah in the United States. And basically, I end up, when you teach biology as a general course, you also include a lot of the things in there, right? So environmental science, that if you don't recover from that and the platelet count comes up, you might have heard that with cancer, maybe. That's one thing that affects you with cancer too, is your platelet count will go down. But supposedly by day 10, the average person in good health, the healthy person, should begin to recover the platelets in their bloodstream. So if you think about what platelets are, how far down this rabbit hole do you want me to go?
Well,
Because if you think about what blood platelets are, they're produced in your bones, right? Blood is produced in the bones. So this problem, actually, the reason that you experience so much physical pain is because the infection is causing tiny little blood clots in the building of blood processes inside of your bones. So that's why it's so painful. But again, it's really an interesting virus because it's mutated. And if you get one of the variants after having the first one,
I just started recording.
It can cause even more trauma because of this unusual resistance. And apparently that's quite a rare response for an immune system to do. I wasn't aware of that before either. So the things that I guess you need to think about when you get dengue is, one, you don't have to worry about passing it to others as long as you don't let a mosquito bite you and let a mosquito bite anyone else. One. Two, there are 4 variants, and the first variant that you get will be the one that you develop an immunity to, which will cause a resistance response if you get another variant later on, even years later. And that's where you hear about people getting extremely sick, because they're basically resistance to the antibodies in their own bodies, and it lets the virus move forward. And being that there's 4 different variants, the chances are pretty good that you might come across more than one.
I think in terms of the variants that you're talking about, I think in Vietnam right now the second variant is the most dangerous, right, guys?
Yeah. The third one is the
Yeah,
most
yeah.
common one. Third and second.
True.
Speaking
Yeah.
of speaking of the
Yeah.
blood rash, I learned a fun fact about to identify is it a rash or like a blood spot. So if you put pressure on it, if the dot go away, is only a normal rash. If it doesn't go away, then it's dengue.
Yeah,
Oh,
one of the
really?
reason for it is because like when you have dengue, your blood vessel actually gets very leaky, and so it's easy to bleed under your skin. But also your platelets, the amount of platelets go down, so not much blood clot, and so you get bleeding under your skin. And so that bleeding actually looks really like a rash. And so what Kevin just said is how you can identify a bleeding caused by dengue from a normal rash.
We're talking about what happens inside the body a lot, but like in terms of just outside symptoms, I realized that it ain't really that much different from just a normal fever, isn't it? Like if you don't like to go to the doctor or something, and you start getting all the dengue symptoms, but you don't realize it until like you start coughing blood and you're like, oh damn, I got dengue or something. I should go to the doctor. So I think that's why it can be really dangerous because similar to COVID right now, actually, with COVID you get fevers and stuff, so you don't immediately realize that you have the disease. And the same can go for dengue as well.
Yeah, because these things are very common, right? Eye pain, fever, muscle pain, headache, nausea. Until like even influenza also have these kind of symptoms. So we only go to the doctor when it's very severe. So normally, like every time I go to the doctor because of a fever, they always test me on dengue first because that's the easiest thing one of the easiest thing that you can get in Vietnam.
Yeah, true. Sam, you got some information on dengue and how it affects inside our body?
I would like to add something from the reduction of the amount of platelets in our body. That I found an interesting fact that besides from bleeding internally, like for example, if you have some injuries or something, you would keep bleeding because there's no blood clotting, because there are so few number of platelet cells. So therefore, you would just bleed just abnormally. So, and which is one of the signs that you might have dengue fever. So, yeah.
Yeah, the reduction in platelets causes the bleeding because things won't coagulate. So blood clots will form where these tiny little strands of proteins are collecting, but in other places where you might need them, they tend not to. And that's one of the reasons that you'll experience bleeding in this with dengue fever. Right?
You know what Sam just said right there about how the blood doesn't clot and all that. It reminds me of a pretty rare disorder called hemophilia, which is the blood just doesn't clot in the typical way, and
yes, exactly. Hemophilia is caused by a developmental protein missing. That old ribosome work that we do in biology, right? But it is a protein that is lacking, maybe an enzyme for the bond, but it won't allow the blood to clot or knit, and hemophilia can be really scary. People who suffer from that disease they can't play sports or do a lot of things like that because any injury can cause severe internal bleeding, and then they don't even know, right? So a cut on a hand is obvious, but if you get hit or something, like if you're playing football, they would never know until the bruise starts to develop. So hemophilia the platelets have a very similar track that they do in dengue. And that was something that I kind of noticed while I was reading through this. It is interesting that if you remember, that most of this stuff is produced and processed inside of your bones. And again, that's one of the reasons that it's so painful. And the headaches, I think, probably have to do with swelling, edema, for the most part, around the outside of the brain, the sheath around the brain, which is a little bit similar to encephalitis, but not exactly the same.
Warning, or warning. Though the thing, your
Wait, Rabbit, you're cutting out.
Yeah.
Yeah, you went underwater for a second there.
Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Just want to warn, if you have a fever and you don't know is it dengue or not, please don't cut your hand and see if there's a blood clot.
Yeah, no, don't do that.
Don't cut your hand and see if there's a blood clot.
What?
Please go to the doctor.
What?
Who would do that?
Yeah, no, crazy person. Anyway, the point is that, going to the doctor is really important, especially these days, because there's so many things out there that can affect us. And the thing that you guys need to take into account is that as much anxiety and stress that everyone has been under for the past almost 2 years now, right? It creates a situation that also causes stress in the developmental parts of your body, and those things are included when you talk about blood platelets and your immune system, right? So one of the first places that gets affected when you're stressed and exhausted and maybe, feeling out of sorts is your immune system and your endocrine system, your hormones. So again, it's really important right now, and because we have experienced so much stress over the past couple of years, and so many things that we never expected to experience in our lives, right? You guys, me, like being out of school, it makes it easier for you to get sick, and not just dengue, but everything that can be pathogenic because your immune system becomes maybe hyper working, is working all the time instead of just when it should, or just when you experience something out of the ordinary. And you have to remember that fever is a negative feedback loop, right? So when you get a fever, it's telling you that you're out of sorts. That's the reason that the body does it. It also does it to heat up and metabolize things as quickly as possible in your immune system. But fevers are generally a sign that you need to see a doctor, because there's a lot of things that can cause fever, right? Besides just dengue or corona or a virus. It can be things that are going on inside that you haven't even thought about, right?
Yeah, and wait, hold on. I remember learning this in AP Environmental, but can you remind me what a negative feedback loop is?
Okay, that's bio, right? A negative feedback loop is when your body comes out of homeostasis and you do something like shiver or have a fever, and it's a warning sign that you can make a correction, right? In the opposite, so this is the weird part about bio, is that a negative feedback loop tells you that you're out of sorts and that you need to make a correction, and a positive feedback loop just makes whatever is troubling you worse, right? So think about labor, a woman going into labor, that's a positive feedback loop, right? She has to continue through the contractions until it's complete. And negative feedback loop is when you shiver or you overheat or you sweat, you come out of homeostasis. And that's really important because that's how we survive. the stronger our affiliation with that steady state, right? A decent diet, regular sleep, keeping ourselves happy and healthy. That's homeostatic. And a negative feedback loop pushes you to realize that something is wrong so that you can make a correction. So when you feel a fever or a headache or things like that that are unusual for you, doctor is really your best bet because you just don't know what can be going on. Certainly at any time in your life, but definitely when we've been under a lot of stress.
And oh yeah, now okay, now I remember. Sam, do you have any? I think you have a concern you were talking to us about the other day about the disease, right? You want to ask Ms. Deb about it?
Oh yeah. I think we should remind a bit to our audience that which cells in our body is the dengue virus is affected to, and how does the virus affect to our cells.
So, okay, so what do you want to know about the virus? You said we're aware of the dengue virus, so you talked about corona, but I didn't hear the end of it.
We would like to know which type of cell in our body is affected by dengue virus, and how does the dengue virus affect to that cell?
Okay, well, actually it is just like any kind of viral infection, it's your T cells that come to the rescue, right? And there's your fun bio words. The macrophages come in and eat it, right? Or surround it and separate it from its infection mode. But basically what's going on is that the immune system comes in, the T cells identify what it is and identify how it's attaching and maybe even take a little bit of information of the genetic so that they can understand how to fight against it better. It's like a little laboratory, but it's not, it's happening inside your body. So once they take that information back to the immune system, then the immune system builds up these specialized cells in the blood system. You might call it, it's similar to white blood cell, but it's the ones that come out and actually surround the infection. And this takes time, and it's also one of the reasons that causes the fever, right? Because all of this metabolism going on to produce special cells and identifying the pathogen takes a great deal of energy inside of individual cells, not just in the whole mechanism, right? So once they identify it, they make it like there's a memory of it somewhere. But when the variants occur, when there's a mutation, and viruses are mutating, they do it. They love to do it. It's probably viruses have been around since the beginning of time. And the reason that they've been that way is because it's so easy for them to change that protein, on the outside that attaches. Dengue is not a corona, so it doesn't have the same types of spikes as a coronavirus or the flu virus, but instead it does an injection into your cells and leaves behind, or I should say takes away some material so that it's easier for it to hide. In that process, again, it creates this cascading depletion of your white blood cells that they're trying to attack where the problems are in your immune system, and they can be anywhere. The rashes are interesting. That has to do with the drop in platelets. But really, it depends on what kind of genetics do you have? Are you generally resistant to most things? You might not have a problem, and your immune system might respond really quickly. But some people who may not have the right kinds of proteins it might take a lot longer, and that's why you can find difference in severity even between people in the same family. So yeah, it does have a lot to do with your genetics and how you're set up, how well you produce things, how well you produce blood, and how quickly you can recover your platelet count. But the platelet count is what causes one of the largest, and that's what makes you really sick and tired, I guess, with dengue.
Yeah, and man, all this bio
I
stuff
just
kind of got
started
my head
recording, by
hurt
the
though.
way.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
So, according,
Yeah,
so
but
very painful.
Tell the science teacher, right?
Very painful.
So
keep
I
going,
don't
keep
know
going.
that like
Yeah.
dengue fever is dengue virus. I mean, is transmitted from mosquito, Aedes mosquito, to human, right? But how many of you knows how it transmit and like multiply within your body? Hmm.
well, you don't get it. Okay. You don't get it from the mosquito. The mosquito never contracts the virus. The mosquito carries the virus from one human to another. And basically, all he does is, but by the way, that's a female because only the females bite. But basically, you're just getting the virus from whoever the mosquito bit first. That was one thing that I thought, well, maybe what does it do to the mosquito? Nothing. They just basically pass it from one human to another. So we can't pass it between ourselves. It has to be bloodborne. So my guess is, and I didn't find anything about this, so this is me making an assumption, but my guess is that you could, for example, if you took a person who was carrying the virus, the dengue virus, and did a blood transfusion with another person, you could pass it that way. But it doesn't. It's not passable on like saliva. It's only bloodborne.
Yeah, because like, if a pregnant woman gets a dengue, like her infant child will
Yes.
be affected for sure, which is what makes it rather unfortunate. But I don't think it can be, passed through saliva or anything either. I think it's
No,
one, yeah.
it's only blood. I don't think it has a structure. They were talking about the structure of the actual earlier on in this, and then it got a bit heady, and I skipped over it. But
I actually like stayed up last night, kind of trying to like figure out how like dengue fever actually like multiply in your cell. I think this is also what Sam was asking too. Don't quote me on this, but one of the first cells that dengue fever actually infect is keratinocyte cells, which are mainly found in your skin.
yes.
Yeah. So yeah, this is how it gets really interesting. So first, the virus actually binds to your cell surface, so it gets sticks on your cell surface. Then try to find the cell receptor. Biology again. So on the cell membranes, there are always receptor. So if it can bind in, then the body recognizes that's part of your body and will accept the thing. Dengue virus, though is not part of your body, but actually can bind into that receptor, and so your cell will accept that thing in. And this is called endocytosis.
Yes.
Now, what does cyto means?
What does cyto mean?
Cyto actually just means a matrix. So, but basically what you're saying is that it comes in through a specialized cell in your skin. And our skin has all kinds of different cells, right? Some of them are sebaceous, some of them take things into the body. Believe it or not, our skin is a semi-permeable membrane, just like a cell, right? Only certain things will fit. But with any kind of a virus, they have this. It is a protein spike, but not like I don't want to confuse it with corona. But what it does is once it gets into that cell, it turns on certain mechanisms inside the cell by injecting a tiny little bit of its genetic material, which will go inside of your cell and then start to reproduce. At that point, your cells are have trouble identifying it as a pathogen, because what it's done is when they, in the first few cells that it does is it creates a new genome inside of that cell using its little piece of material and your genetics. So once it's managed to do that and that original infection site explodes with all of this extra genetic material coming out, then everything around it thinks that it's okay because it's got your genetic material attached to it. That's kind of the weird thing about viruses, right? So they come in, they take a little bit of their genetic material and they steal a little bit of your genetic material and they goop it all together and reproduce it. Now it's like a ninja in your immune system, because it does have some of those bad proteins to identify, but it also has your DNA, which makes your immune system a little more tentative to attack. It's kind, there's a lot of chemistry that goes on in here. It's never that simple, right? We could only wish that it has to do with passing over tissue barriers, how big it is it able to pass into a blood platelet? Is it able to move into a goblet cell? It just depends on what it is, but it hides. And that's the reason, again, that so many viruses, not just dengue, are such a problem for all organisms, not just us, by the way, because we get a virus one way, but every organism, including single-celled animals, can be attacked by viruses, which is very interesting in and of itself, right?
Yeah.
So again, dengue is an interesting one. And we have a lot of mosquito-borne diseases in the world. Zika, what's the other one? West Nile, right? And they all have a different shape to them, these viruses, and that's what makes them different. And it sounds to me like you guys have done your research, because I'm hearing some things that I didn't expect to hear from you guys today. So again, it's viruses are really old, and I don't think we even really understand how long they've been around. I might suggest, as a biology teacher, that it was part of that first endosymbiotic reaction, right, where one cell basically encompassed another cell. You could say ate it, right, but didn't digest it. And the two of them together created some kind of symbiotic, mutually beneficial relationship, right? We talk about that in bio, when we say, well, this might have been the first eukaryote, right? Or the first cell that had membrane-bound organelles inside. But anyway, viruses are older than eukaryotic cells, maybe even older than prokaryotic cells, and maybe a part of some of the initial evolutionary steps, if you will, during the primordial stew. Is this where we wanted to go with this? You invited a bio teacher.
We'll go as deep as we can go.
Yeah.
I did not expect to reach the primordial stew, though. I like it.
They're waiting for us. When we went to endosymbiosis, then it's all over. So yeah, symbiosis means that it gets taken inside, and it needs to, whether it's pathogenic, which it can be sometimes, or symbiotic, where it takes a benefit from the cell that it's involved in, which is what most viruses do. Is they don't want to kill the cell, right? They want to hide in the cell. So they want to take up as much genetic information so that they are not identified. And that's what makes viruses so prolific and so deadly. And again, I don't think we'll ever get rid of them. And I guess maybe we should start thinking about how many more we're going to find as we move further and further into other habitats on the planet. And is there virus in space? That's a whole nother question, right?
That's a whole nother topic for another day. But yeah, thank you so much, Ms. Deb. Before, I think we're almost reaching time mark here. So before we end things, I would just like to ask everyone again another review question for the audience as well as for us. This one is real simple. We're just gonna let me ask you, how does your body get affected by dengue? Now, this is for the audience, so is that you don't need to answer this. We already did a long time ago. But yeah, let me give you 4 choices right now. Number 1, you vomit. Number 2, your eyes get weird. Number 3, your parents get worried. And number 4, I don't know. Sam, what's number 4?
Sam, where's Sam?
Where's Sam? Sam's dead. He's just looking at us.
I have students like that.
Number 4, you got really unlucky and got bit by a infected mosquito.
Wait, no, but the question is about how it affects your body.
Oh, sorry.
Alright. Sam, number 4, give us the 4th choice. The honors. You have the honor.
You get bleeding when you have an injury.
You get what?
Bleeding.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Let's just go with that. All right. That's our review question for today. And once again, thank you so much, Ms. Deb, for joining us today. It was really nice to just, have a chill time and talk with you about this topic. Because our goal here is just for everyone to, be aware of this and know that, you should be looking out for this disease, man. You gotta take it a bit serious. So you were able to help us a lot in that, and we just want to thank you. You have anything else to say?
Yeah, thanks for inviting me, you guys. And just so you know, I'm here. If you need, don't be afraid to ask. So I appreciate that you did, and I was happy to help. And I hope I gave you a little information you didn't already know. So I'm going to tell you what, I'm going to let you finish up your meeting. I'm going to finish up my Friday and head home and feed the little dog. You all have a wonderful weekend, and I hope to see you all on Monday. And don't forget, next week is exams. Just saying.
Oh God, exams.
Great. Happy Friday.
Wonderful.
Wonderful.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
You guys might not be watching this on Friday, but happy Friday.
Nice.
Have a good you guys.
Yep. Hey, with the boys. Little ducky back at it again. Another one. Dengue. Dengue. There's been a mosquito flying around my house. Got white stripes but had no clue what that meant until now. Wish someone would have told me a little sooner. Now I'm stuck in bed dealing with dengue fever. My head hurts, no one warned me, so now I got blood on my shirt. So much vomit. What can I do to get well and stop it? 100 children die, yet some to know that ain't right. Yeah. My heart's broken, spread the word, people, and make sure that their pain is broken. Hey, Lil Ducky signing off. We back at it, baby.